This is the first version, which I came out in late 42, early 43. And this is the Panzerfaust 30, the Kleine. The Kleine means small, and it kind of looks like a tiki torch. It has a hollow sheet metal head. This is filled with explosive, but again, if you guys were to see a cutaway, there would be a V-shaped funnel piece of sheet metal in here. This is a little bit heavier metal on the outside, and what you do is you pull a pin. This sight flips up. When this flips up, it releases a safety that's in the back here to allow you to take this lever right here and just push it down. And all you're doing is pushing this down. It's a sear, and when you release the sear, this rod would shoot forward and hit a primer. The primer has a pellet that's about down here. This is like a 1/8 of an inch steel tube, or a 1/4 inch steel tube. When this thing detonates, there's a restriction in the back, so it necks down just a little bit, causing a Venturi effect. So you have equal pressure going forward, equal pressure going out back. So for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And if you tried to fire this off of a shoulder-fired weapon, you would knock the person's shoulder right out of their socket and completely make them ineffective.
And that's throwaway, right? Once it's fired once?
Yeah, this was a throwaway. So you'd flip the sight up, you take your little hole, you line it up at the top up here, and the range on this is 30 meters because it's a relatively low velocity. The idea is that you fire it up, it comes down, it comes off on that nice soft deck armor. So 30 meters, yeah, you're right. Maybe from here to that tree where that bench is, that would really be the maximum range for this weapon. A more average range, and from talking to veterans, they made this, they made the Panzerfaust 60, which a much larger head, plus it had a range of 60 meters. And then they came out with the, yeah, the 100, and then they were developing a 150 in prototype stage in 1945. All of the veterans we've ever talked to, though, they said the average range that they would attack a tank is from here to that building.
Yeah. Wow, that's
because you got
close.
one shot.
That's awfully close.
You got one shot.
That's awfully close.
You got one shot, and they're shooting at you, and you don't want to miss. So when you're under a lot of pressure and people are shooting at you, you got shells flying around, you got one chance, you take the chance where you're not going to miss. So you get down, stick the thing underneath your arm. This has the big warning. Warning, there's backfire. And you line this thing up. Boom. Really, to be honest with you, you could just take this thing and just shoot it like this into a tank from this range, because it didn't really matter if you aimed or not. It mattered if you aimed because you're trying to hit a tank at like where that where those that bench is. That's probably 30 meters. That's probably maybe even pushing 40. But when you fire this thing, it would go up. And if you have that training video, Ken.
What I've got?
You got that training video?
Yeah, what?
Yeah, but Mannergege Panzer, which we need to watch at some point in time at an event, that actually shows a live Panzerfaust fired into a T-34 that was captured. And they fired at about this range. It's interesting to see it come up. You could just barely see it because it's still moving fast, just slow enough to where you can see the round. When this thing fires, there's a wooden post that comes down to here. There's a 1/2-inch steel plate on the back end of it, like a coin. And then there's sheet metal fins that are folded down. They're made out of spring steel. So as soon as this thing launches out of here, the fins like flop up and they stabilize. So the thing will go up like this and come right down. And when you get done with it, you throw away the tube. That was the first version that they came out with. They realized that that was a little bit underpowered. If you're going to hit a T-34, especially on the front end, because that's usually the direction it's facing you when they're coming at you, that's okay against BT-7s and Shermans, but we really need something a little bit heavier. So they came out with a Panzerfaust. This is still a Panzerfaust 30 configuration. It's still the same sighting mechanism in that, but they went to a much bigger head. You can see the thing's 3 times the size. This would hit a frontal armor section of a T-34 and burn a hole through 4 inches of armor and kill the crew inside. And inject all of the explosive power into this into a hole that's less than an inch, about 1/2 inch, and it would all burn a hole right through as a jet instantaneously and into the crew compartment.
Shape charge. It's called a shape charge.
The shape charge. So again, same principle, line it up with the head, and you can fire it. With the Panzerfaust that I have inside, it's a different configuration. They used this for a short time, but they said 30 meters, we need a little bit better range. So they built the Panzerfaust 60, which was the standard production model, which used a different assembly. When you flip up the sight, it has 3 range markers on it, which you guys can take a look at on mine. And it had it for 30, 60, and 80 meters. You could allegedly hit stuff at 80 meters, which I think is about where that tent is.
The yellow.
The British
Line
tent.
Weber.
Polish tent?
Yeah, Line and Weber's tent, or maybe the poles down there. If that was a tank. To be honest with you, I don't know if I'd want to. If I had a pile of these things and I had a couple chances, maybe I'd try it. But again, if I was a German vet, I think I'd wait for it to be about this close. Because again, you don't have to aim. You just pop out of your foxhole, fire right into the side of it. There's no thought involved. There's no lining up sights. It's point and shoot. And just keep it at a slight angle. The Panzerfaust 60s and on, they had little key rings that were on the side, so you could actually undo the little key rings on the side, then you could pull the pins out, so you could pull the assembly apart. You'd carry extra heads, especially in infantry units, where you're given maybe 10 of these tubes for a platoon, and then they would give you 20 or 30 heads. You carried the heads on a pole attached to a string, so they dangled around so they weren't banging into each other. And you could pull this thing apart. You would put a new cartridge. It's a cartridge about this big around that drops down, and then you would open this thing up. You'd put the new priming cartridge in, and then you'd cock the thing back, put the safeties in it, and then lock it in position. And you put your pin back in, and then you could load your round by twisting it and going down. This has a little collar on the bottom. The originals had a little tab that stuck out that had like a pin through it.
Now, is this throwaway? Is this for that one?
No, that's what he's saying. You get
This one was a throwaway with this older mechanism. The Panzerfaust 60 you could actually disassemble, and the Panzerfaust 60 you couldn't. I talked to one veteran who was part of like a tertiary line unit, even lower on the food chain than the 353rd, and they wouldn't issue them a whole bunch of these. They would issue them a handful of completed Panzerfausts, and then they issued them all the materials to replenish them. But it wasn't like you rearmed it while you're waiting while the tanks are attacking you. You'd have maybe 3 or 4 of these. You'd fire them at the end of the battle. You'd take them back when you had some time, and you'd rearm them.
Yeah.